Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. All right, we're getting ready for Shabbat. People are coming over. Well, it is Shabbat. Shabbat's ready for us. We're just getting ready to celebrate it. But let me see. We're walking over here. See my little puppy. Look at my puppy. He has his little sweater on. It says spoiled because he's spoiled. Spoiled by his mama, by me, everyone. Anyway, so I want to talk about this week's Torah portion. Hopefully we're all reading our Bibles day by day to strengthen our spiritual walk and to increase our knowledge and understanding of what the Father's plan is for us in our life. So this week's Torah portion, Jacob has left Laban's land. He had that argument with Laban, and they decided to separate their ways. And they finally he gets to go, and he's with his children and his wives, and he's going across the land. And one of his servants comes to say, "Hey, your brother Esau's coming. He has 400 men with him." And his men were like men of war. And so a lot of assumption is done though on Jacob's part, where he actually believes that his brother's coming to harm him. It never says that. The thing is when he left his brother, the last time he saw his brother, they didn't leave on good standings. His brother vowed that he would kill him. He was very, very angry. And that's what Jacob had in his mind. That's what Jacob remembered. So that's what Jacob was thinking. So Jacob starts sending all these gifts and stuff to his brother Esau, trying to appease him, trying to make him like him or not be so angry with him. But that was his flesh that was trying to do something in a way of deceit, a very deceitfulness. Trying to win him over so he wouldn't harm him. Because remember, he's just him and his little boys and his little girls and his wives. They didn't have weapons, and they weren't men of war yet, not yet anyway. That's for another story. But that's what Jacob was facing. And so with that understanding, Jacob starts to go out there and he separates his family, and he goes across the river with some stuff that he had, and he's trying to figure a way to get out of this. And what ends up happening is he goes in a place and he's trying to just be by himself and think, trying to figure out what do I do. And I don't know where this man, the Bible says, it came out and he starts wrestling with him. And then later on he found out it's this angel of Elohim that he's wrestling with. And Jacob wouldn't let him go. And the angel tells him, let him go. The day is coming. You need to let me go. And he doesn't. He says, you bless me first. So the angel ends up touching his inner thigh. And Jacob starts walking with a limp, and he still doesn't let go. And so the angel tells him, you prevailed with the Lord, with the Yahweh, Yahuwah. And he changes his name. He says, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. And so now Jacob's thinking is different. His walk is different. Physically and spiritually is different. There's a lot of going on in the scripture, and we're going to teach that today in our Shabbat. We'll get into it a little deeper. But just for a brief understanding of what was going on, Jacob had to have an encounter where he had to actually be humbled. And he couldn't defeat this, but he had that sheer self-determination. He just wouldn't give up, and he didn't give up. And so because of that, he wanted that blessing so bad. He needed help. He knew he needed something more than his ideas, his thoughts, and his own integrity. And so when this angel touched his inner thigh, we got to understand that in those days, the inner thigh meant authority and power. And when they would swear one to another, they would touch the inner thigh, swear, making that oath, making that agreement that whatever was planned or whatever was stated would happen by the authority given by the procreative power to bring forth babies and generations. They would put the hand on the inner thigh and make that vow. And so what happened was he always relied on his own authority, his own power, all his life, and all that you see that he did and all the struggles that he had. He relied a lot on himself, even though the Father was blessing him. But he had to understand that it wasn't just him, that it was always the Father that was blessing him. And now it had to become more the Father, more now than ever before. And that's exactly what happened. And so now Jacob came to understanding that he needed the Father, and that's what the Father did. He took his authority away. He shrunk it, and now he was walking with a limp. And from that time on, Jacob always walked with that limp, and he had to trust in the authority of the Father. Now he had to trust in the power of the real King. And so now Esau's coming, Esau's coming, and all these men are coming with them. And what does Jacob? He's hurt now. He's limping. He's not the same as he used to be. But what does Jacob do? Jacob starts to pray. Jacob starts to pray, and he asks the Father, remember the promise you made for me. Remember you said about what would happen with my generations. Remember what you said about my children being like the sand. You're bringing up the promises the Father promised him. And he reminding the Father of that. Not that he needed reminding, but just to, I think it was more for himself than anybody else. But he was able to do that. And sure enough, when he met his brother Esau, there was peace that was made for a short time, even though there are some gestures in Scripture and the Torah, especially in the Hebrew script, that show that Esau still had a hatred for Jacob. But it's been over 20 years they haven't seen each other, and with the humbleness that Jacob came with and the presents that he gave out, and he's seen his nephews and his nieces, and he's seen his sister-in-laws, I think Esau's heart was touched enough where it overrode his anger. And even though all that happened, Esau was still blessed. And Esau said, I already have all these things. I don't need to keep them. And Jacob said, no, brother, these are for you. I'm your servant. These blessings are for you, not for me. And so he finally ended up taking them. And so just a short little story, but understand sometimes our struggle is not, with maybe a physical brother. Maybe it's not with our own authority and our own understanding, we might perceive as true wisdom and knowledge. We might be fighting with whether it's anger, or maybe it's a situation at work, or maybe a situation at home, or maybe it is with a real brother or a real sister. And we need the Father's authority. We need his understanding, his power to show us how to overcome these things, how to defeat these things. And surely he will. We take all these things to him in prayer, and we come to him in love. That perfect love is greater than anger, is greater than fear. And Jacob had a lot of fear. You read it says he was horribly afraid of Esau. He was really scared. And so then the angel came and had to work him over and tell him, hey, pretty much it's start time for you to understand who's in charge or who's really got the authority. And sure enough, that Jacob did. When he met his brother, the Father already touched Esau's heart, and there's peace there, and Jacob was able to go freely with his family and continue on their journey. And then his children were able to grow strong, really strong. And then we have as the 12 tribes of Israel. And there's some other stuff in the Torah portion where his baby girl, his only little girl, she ends up getting raped, and his sons rise up, and you see the violent men they become, and the warriors that they became. They had a right to do some of the things they did, but they went a little too far, because not the one that caused the problem just paid the price, but the whole nation. And so our anger sometimes can get in front of us, in front of wise choices. And sometimes we gotta say, hey, yeah, it was wrong, but let's do this the right way. And so there's some things that Simon and Levi did they didn't do right. So we just gotta make sure that we're really put our emotions away, think about it, pray about it, and then go about and do what we have to do to make whatever happen right. Because it wasn't really about them and their father or the nation. It was really about their sister and her heart and how she was defiled. And you don't really hear about what happened with her after that. But she was no longer a virgin. And now who's she gonna, what man's gonna want her? Especially back in those days and where they were. And the man who wanted her as a wife is now dead. So they didn't just destroy a nation. They destroyed part of their sister's life too, of what could have been. So for whatever it is worth, I'm not sure if it would have been good for her to end up marrying this guy and having children from him anyway. They were outside of Israel. He wasn't a good man. He did something very bad. Even now, in where we're at, it's punishable by death. Even by prison, not death. But back in those days and where they were in the region they were, that it is punishable by death, and that's exactly what happened. But they raised that on a whole nation. And they brought some deception in to get it done too. So the way they did it, their father Jacob was very upset in the way they handled the situation, and he stood quiet for a while, and then their sons reacted. I think Jacob was trying to figure out how to amend this problem peacefully and get things resolved, but he didn't have a chance to do that because his son stepped in, intervened, and they just caused all havoc. They chopped a lot of people up. bloody men, you know. And there's some things that happen in that Torah portion where the father actually brings a curse, not on his sons. You got to really read it carefully, but on their anger and their violence. He cursed it so it wouldn't grow within them. And you see the Levi, he actually grows into bringing in the high priest and the priesthood for the nation. So just with that, you know, shalom, shalom. Just a little bit, tiny little part of the Torah portion that we're going to go over. But if you have a fight within, give it to the Father. Rely on His authority and His power and His strength, and you will overcome by His name, by His power, by His authority, and who He is, and the love He has for you, and the love you have for Him. All right, shalom, shalom. Talk to you all soon.